We are on the move, even on a Friday, here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. Leave those comments and questions. This is our daily look at the latest from the transfer portal, our live update with Leanne Herring. Leanne, how you doing today?
Doing good, Mark. We were talking a little bit about before you came on air. There's some big commitments. There's a lot of move and chatter and rumblings. Of course, we get football back tonight. The CFP playoffs start. We're on a Friday, I know, so we finally get a little bit of football. And I expect over the weekend that some of these transfers that we'll be talking about, they will. Some of them, don't be surprised if we see them on the sidelines. Obviously, this weekend. Um, and again, like I say, not only when programs win on the turf, there are also wins for the recruiting trail. So I suspect that while we have not so much to talk about, always a lot to talk about, but some of these prospects that, like I said, that we still kind of have just entered the portal or kind of been lingering, still kind of maybe your mid 3 stars, 4 star guys that are out there. A lot of them too are waiting to take their visits, this weekend and see kind of how things go. Some of them, like I said, don't be surprised. We'll see a lot of the sidelines for CFP this weekend as far as with some of these transfers and everything. And remember, we got a dead period coming up 23rd through January 1st. Of course, in the dead period, that doesn't mean that business doesn't go on as usual. It does. It just means, of course, contacts limited, face-to-face visits and so forth and all that. But there will continue, obviously, much like the regular recruiting that we see during the high school, there's still a lot of talking, calling, messaging, everything in between. It's just not in person. So that definitely will be busy. And I think we're going to see a lot of interesting movement. We'll definitely, I don't know if we'll jump on this weekend, Mark. We'll talk about that maybe after the show. But I do believe that this weekend, as far as movement and transfer portals, or some of the guys, like I said, that are going to be lingering, expect a lot of movement because we're going to see a lot of them at some of these games this weekend.
All right, let's run it down. Leanne's given me her list. This is what is set in stone, what's been decided, and then we will get to some of the visits and speculation. But in regards to where we know people are going right now, the offensive tackle Chad Lindbergh, who originally was at Georgia, played at Rice. He's moving on to play for a many-time, 6-time, 7-time Super Bowl champion.
Yep, he is headed to Chapel Hill and UNC. Like I said, this is a name that was really kind of under the radar, but one of the top OTs, got plenty of start. Like you said, Mark, he started out his career at Georgia, had a decent career. I believe he started 11 games there, and then he moved over this last year. Of course, is Bryce. He played left guard and then also left tackle. So another versatile lineman. Like I always say, you can't do it without the big guys up front. And clearly, Bill Belichick sees that because the signing of Lindbergh makes the third offensive lineman this past week. It's going to be heading to Chapel Hill. Of course, he's going to join Holy Cross offensive lineman Chris O'Kelly. And another name, another highly, highly coveted guy that we've talked about. I was kind of hoping that Ole Miss was going to get in the race because they were out of high school star out of East St. Louis. Miles McVay, former Alabama offensive lineman, will be joining Lindbergh over in Chapel Hill. It's already official. The photos and everything are out, so when you make the photo drop, what do they say? It's they're out there. So again, a big weekend for Bill Belichick. It should come as no surprise. But again, 3 top offensive linemen making their home out in Chapel Hill with Bill Belichick. Like I said, that pickup of Miles McVay, we knew that there was going to be a lot of schools in the mix. But of course, Miles McVay had roots, visited Syracuse, Illinois, UNC. So he wasn't necessarily looking to go to, some of the other powerhouse schools within the SEC. And it's just a fit from home. But again, Chad Lindbergh, former Georgia guy, time with the Rice Owls, is now also going to be the third offensive line commit. So like I said, they're getting it done. Bill Belichick, I'm glad to be on the same move as anyone like Bill Belichick because clearly he's taking care of that offensive line first. And it's been a big week as far as winning the trench game from the transfer portal out in Chapel Hill with Bill Belichick with the third signing of a pretty good diverse group of linemen who come with a lot of size, a lot of experience, and by no means this is a big component that Bill Belichick took care of business and stood on business early on, getting these 3 top linemen over to Chapel Hill.
USC running back Quinton Joyner was quite impressive when he was given some opportunities and backing up Woody Marks, who is moving on to the NFL. So logic would say that Joyner would stay put in Los Angeles and become running back one. But no, he is moving on to the Big 12.
Yes, he is moving on to the Big 12, of course, heading back home closer to his Texas roots. He was a really high profile running back coming out of Manor High School in Manor, Texas. It should come as no surprise that, that the edge, what is going to be really surprised, what's really kind of surprised me, and we'll talk about towards the end of the show here, is the momentum that Texas Tech has got in the portal. Some of the guys that we'll be talking about, they've edged out Ole Miss as of now as the #1 team to take on in the transfer portal. So I don't know if you've ever been out to Lubbock, Texas, Mark. I have a few times. There's not much in Lubbock, Texas, but there's sure something in that water that's attracting some high profile guys. And Joyner is one of those kids. And again, remember, I believe that Texas Tech, of course, has a unique NIL from the jump, even kind of in those early stages. They were one of the programs really trying to set the trend of, offering unique incentives, offensive linemen getting paid as soon as they sign, so very different. So their NIL over there in Red Raider Nation is quite unique, and it's proven to be so attracting top talent that we'll kind of talk about a little bit later here. Yes, but Joyner coming back home closer to his Texas roots is going to be a Red Raider. And like you said, we see a lot of players who have, are on the move, Mark, that we've said have been an impact on their current squad, but for whatever reason, testing the waters. And it looks like I'm going to be, it's too early to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if Joyner's going to be one of their top guys, out in Lubbock doing some instant impact work for the Red Raiders.
Tight end Jackson Bowers came out in the 2023 class to BYU, but he is headed further west now.
Yeah, he is. He's going to be an Oregon. He's heading over to Oregon State, of course, coming out of BYU. A tight end that we haven't really talked about, but he was highly touted. Coming out 6'5", 240, 4-star. Really physical. He's a big built guy. I think that he's going to. But wherever his next home being at Oregon State with the Beavers, I think he's going to do a lot of big things there. I think that's a name we're going to hear a lot more about. Like I said, he was kind of one of those underrated transfer guys, but I think he's another strong build, just really big built, really physical. He's really shifty for his size. I think a lot of time when you get into like the tight end position, you want that size, you want that height, but I think there's always that hesitation you hear from coaches and scouts. He's a big guy, but he's not really moved. That's not the case with this kid right here. When you watch his film, when you watch his career, from high school through the way through BYU, I think that's one of the things that makes him really unique. Physical, big body guy, but for his size, he's pretty swift. And he's really got great hand and eye coordination. So I think this is a great get for Oregon State. I think we're going to hear a lot more of him. Again, another value player that didn't last too long in the transfer. But like I said, you go back and look at his tape and you can see why. You can see why he's going to be a great catch. Surprising, a lot of more teams didn't go after him. But of course, I think this is a great win for the Beavers down in Oregon State.
Jarquez Petaway's a wide receiver who was on the bench for Oklahoma for much of the season. They had injuries and he stepped in, caught some big passes for the Sooners, including a big one that led to a comeback win against Auburn. 16 catches in his Oklahoma career for Petaway, but he is moving on.
He is moving on from Norman, surprisingly, to East Carolina. East Carolina obviously had some guys exit, a name that we talked about here. Chase Al, he was a highly touted transfer out of East Carolina that we talked about, was on the move. But I think that East Carolina Pirates are going to be happy with this pickup. Another really talented guy in Jacquez Petaway, at OU and everything. So I think like I said, another swift, shifty guy, great size, great physicality, great route runner when you watch his tape and things like that. So again, this is a great win for East Carolina.
Well, let's keep it moving, folks, and we appreciate the comments and questions there in the chat. We've got Arkansas wide receiver Isaiah Sategna, and he is now Oklahoma loses a wide receiver, but then they took care of that and they go ahead and pick up a wide receiver from the SEC.
Yes, exactly. Like you said, it's a vicious cycle. Well, we lose one guy, but again, when you're in the transfer portal, never hesitate, never worry. I know, especially with the fan base, because you're always going to find a guy, and Isaiah Sategna is that guy. He's going to be heading to Norman. OU, like again, um, OU, of course, we've seen a lot of Sooners hit into the transfer portal, but again, another nice pickup. Did a lot of good things over at Arkansas, and I expect that he will do no different heading into the Big 12. I think that the big, teams like Oklahoma with the shift in the Big 12, I think they're really looking to speed things up offensively and get some momentum. And I think Oklahoma is really looking at Brett Venables to make a run. So it comes as no surprise as Oklahoma has become a destination for certain key players looking, like I said, to build over there in the Big 12 and help teams like Oklahoma make a stronger run and stronger footing this past season, next upcoming season.
There you see Sategna's sophomore stats in Fayetteville with Taylon Green at quarterback, another transfer coming in, of course, from Boise State. 37 catches, almost 500 yards, and a touchdown. Fairly productive season for Sategna in 12 games for Arkansas as they get ready for a bowl game. Don't know his status in regards to whether, and that's one thing in question with a lot of these guys, whether they're going to stay on with their particular teams. Caught a bowl game just the other night, and I'm trying to think what team that was, where they had 22 transfers, but 20 of those players decided that they're going to play in the bowl game, and they went ahead and suited up for their old team to play the bowl game. So it all depends based on culture, based on whether that particular player feels confident that he's put enough on tape that he's going to be able to be coveted, or that he wants to get one more rep out there to impress future coaches and put himself in a good position with another game tape. So those situations are quite intriguing to follow as well.
They are really intriguing, and I'm really glad you brought that up. Like I said, not only does it say a lot about the culture that a program's committed in, like you said, in that instance, when you know that you're going to lose 20 guys to the portal, but their willingness to stay. But again, the other side of it too, like you mentioned, and we see a lot of the reason that some of these transfer play is because, like you said, Mark, they're still trying to put some film out there. A lot, like I said, this process is so fast, and there's a limited window, a limited time. Obviously, these guys can always regress from going back to the portal, but once it's closed, it's closed. And like you said, a lot of these guys that haven't seen a lot of action, that have the opportunity because the rosters in such places are losing guys, they have the opportunity, maybe like you said, to get some last minute film, or also to finally be seen, because a lot of these guys, we have to remember, haven't seen any action. So in some of these programs that we're going to see bowl season, this is also another opportunity and incentive for these guys, even though they're about to hit the portal, that we might see them still play, because like you said, they still have to find a way to market themselves. And a lot of times these guys, we don't see recent film on them, and it's really hard to give them a chance when these coaches aren't going to see them obviously in person. So they only take film, or what they know from what they see on paper. So again, another big opportunity for a lot of these portal players to remain with their teams until after their bowl game is played and so forth.
This comment cracks me up, coming in from Mike G. So, Leanne, you've been to Lubbock. I haven't, but I've heard similar things. But this is the way Mike G puts it: trucks and fire ants.
Yeah, that's not too far. That's not too far from it. Like I said, it's one of those other places. Similar to College Station, but I do believe there's a lot more in college, just a tiny bit more to do College Station than there is in Lubbock. It's kind of out there, that red dirt. Great music, good times. But yeah, like I said, but again, Texas Tech from the jump, when NIL started, really, really taking the momentum. Texas Tech was one of those teams we didn't talk a lot about, because it's just one of those teams you don't talk a lot about. Kind of just stays hidden. But I think that early on in NIL, when they were putting packages together, again, like I said at the top of the hour, they're putting really unique packages as far as, how they were going to approach NIL, that I think a lot of other schools have taken that model for. And I think that's why we're seeing, for those that where NIL plays a good factor in there, a lot of people are interested in the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And also, it's another opportunity with the momentum shift in the Big 12 and the change of the scope in the Big 12, where Texas Tech could have a run. And that's not something you've heard in a long time because, again, before A&M moved, before Texas moved, I mean, in Oklahoma was it a stronger position? Those were the three teams in the Big 12 that you talked about. So I think Texas Tech is trying to make a strong run in the Big 12, and they're trying to do it. And I mean, they're well on their way. But again, that's another big incentive you see with these high profile guys that are coming to Texas Tech. I mean, there's a slew list of them from top programs coming in that are going to be instant impact players because I mean that's another incentive when you go to a place like Texas Tech that's needing to rebuild. Well, they're going to rebuild on a lot of talent just from the first couple names that you look at the top of their transfer portal signees this season.
Our buddy Joey Foster says Texas Tech is doing amazing things, but they have also had great recruiting classes under Joey McGuire, but it has not brought wins to the level they expect. This portal class means watch out for Texas Tech. They did go 8-4 this year, so they had a decent season. Yeah. And Purple Orca, in terms of Isaiah Sategna, says Sategna was on the OU team this year, had some stats, would have been the leading receiver. Don't know what he's talking about there being on the OU team. Anyway, Isaiah Sategna moves from Arkansas to OU, and Jaquez Petaway moving to East Carolina. Let's see. I know you had one other note here. Freshman wide receiver from Missouri, Courtney Crutchfield.
He is on the move. He just hit the portal. He was a really high. Mizzou has a lot of movement. Despite the success this season, we see a lot of guys, Mizzou, and there's a lot of players. They had a really strong recruiting class last season. We see a lot of these players on the move. Courtney Crutchfield was a very highlight out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. So I expect the Hogs to be a strong favorite in this one. Obviously, that ties. We haven't heard any rumblings just yet of where they're thinking of what schools have reached out to them. I'm sure right now at this moment I don't have specifics, but there are plenty of schools that are going to be reaching out for this freshman wide receiver, really talented. Like I said, high school player that was really coveted, especially in that regional area. So I would expect Arkansas would be the top one to go after that, obviously with the replenishment of what they're trying to do and rebuild, looking for some momentum, keep things going in there. Again, once we see some early teams, but he will be a wide receiver to watch into the weekend. I suspect that his growth his value is going to grow if it hasn't already by the time we hit the end of the show. So freshman Mizzou wide receiver Courtney Crutchfield out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas is on the move, and look for a lot of teams to be reaching out to him soon. And like I said, as soon as we get some information as far as what kind of teams or where he's kind of thinking, we definitely will let you know either this weekend or come on our Monday show.
On our Wednesday night Florida State show, we talked about Deuce Robinson, 4-star USC tight end / wide receiver. He looks like a tight end, basically plays wide receiver in the Jimmy Graham type of mold out there. Just a big body guy that's an exceptional talent. I think anybody who gets Deuce Robinson is in for a treat. He's a matchup nightmare. And again, we talked about it on our Wednesday Florida State show that he was on campus this week at Florida State.
Yeah, and it looks to appear, like you said, you've checked out all the boxes. He's just one of those phenom players that can do it all. I mean, extremely athletic. Also, it's a mention note, much like his father, a very top dual sport athlete. Obviously, Arizona roots. He did visit Arizona State. We're not hearing a lot of rumblings about that. But again, also plays baseball. So he's a very athletic, like you said, his specimen. He's just that guy. When you see him, he translates whatever position you're going to put in. Obviously recruited out of high school as a tight end, but has played wide receiver. Also some other experience on other sides of the ball. But again, it looks he is set to. It seems like he's going to be set in with the Noles. They seem to be with the lead. Obviously, there's roots there. His dad was a former Sabinal, played baseball there, I believe, and his mom also, she was a swimmer, but at Florida. So this kid comes from athletic DNA. Again, when you watch his tape, he's just a beast. He's going to create chaos for defense. His size, his physicality. I mean, he's got that typical tight end body, and play tight end in high school, but of course has been, predominantly a wide receiver. Now, one team that we know that has been really, really trying to knock on the door, tear it down, really, really, really looking to get him on campus. Possibly this weekend has been the Louisville Cardinals. Of course, we talked about, the USC connection that they're trying to bank on is, of course, to sign in commitment of Miller Moss, former USC guy. They're trying to really utilize him to get in. They were hoping, to get in some time with Quentin Joyner. Obviously, that ship sailed over to Texas Tech and Lubbock, and now they're really trying to kick the tires to see if there's a slim chance that there's any way that the Cardinals and Jeff Brom can find a way to get into a late push with a really exceptional athlete. But right now, what we're hearing, it looks like the Noles are the team to beat, very solid in there. Again, has visited Arizona State. Other teams obviously are knocking. We don't see any visits outside Louisville, really trying to hope that they can push enough full, like I said, use Miller Moss and in that USC connection to be able to get him on campus to try to maybe steer clear and have an opportunity at least to state their case. But right now, for top elite athlete, as I'll just say, because like I said, he can do it all. Juice Robinson, it seems that the Noles have the lead.
As Jackson is letting us know there in the chat, the Ole Miss show is every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. We may have to switch that up with the holidays over the next 2 weeks, so keep that in mind. But every week, the Ole Miss show on the Ole Miss channel with Leanne, Ruby, and myself. And we got a note coming in from our guy Matt letting us know Alec Ayamenor, the wide receiver from Stanford, has entered the NFL draft. So Elia Maynor is a big body wide receiver who can high point the football, got great frame, big wingspan, and he really broke onto the scene nationally when Stanford was down on a Friday night 2 years ago against Deion Sanders and company and matched up against Travis Hunter. He was one of the few guys, maybe the only guy that I've seen abuse Travis Hunter. Had some ridiculous line, like 13 catches for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns as Stanford was down like 4 touchdowns in that game, made a remarkable comeback, won in overtime at Colorado, and that really burst him onto the national scene. So, Matt, thank you so much for that note. Alec Alia Maynor, the Stanford wide receiver, I haven't said his name in a long, long time, is entering the NFL draft. The next guy on the screen, Leanne, I know you had a note on him. This is a guy as an offensive lineman who was highly, highly sought after coming out of high school, signed with Bama, went to TCU, and now, as we know, it's becoming commonplace for these players to hook up with the third team.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of elite talent. This was a kid that everybody was going to. It was no surprise when he signed at Bama, obviously during the a couple years back, and now, like I said, he's made a stint with TCU. This is going to be whoever picks up this kid is going to get a lot. Like I said, what I say here all the time, a value player. I mean, he's just big body. Lot of versatility when it comes to playing the line. So I haven't heard or confirmed any early rumblings as far as the teams to watch out for him. But like I said, his phone's probably ringing if it hasn't already. I expect some fellow SEC schools to look at Auburn, possibly Ole Miss. Ole Miss is definitely in the market still for some alignment. He would be a great fit there. Of course, like I said, with his experience playing at Alabama, his highly touted recruit coming out of high school, he's going to be an instant impact player. And also at a TCU. So what I like about him, versatility, big body, physical, everything you're looking for in a lineman. But most of all, like I said, I think he's a great pickup for a team. I wouldn't be surprised if some other schools are looking at him, within the Texas area, SMU, Houston, Texas Tech will probably be calling because they've seen obviously a lot of him in action, firsthand. So again, those are some of the schools we haven't confirmed, but kind of watching his tape, kind of knowing where his relation is, in those states and those programs. Those are the schools I expect to, possibly be in the market for his services.
So here we go down some of the rumblings that are going on at the end of this week here, going into Christmas. We've got the 2 big wide receivers near the top of the board that we've been talking about every day. Georgia Tech's Eric Singleton and Kentucky's Dane Key. Anything there?
Eric Singleton, we've talked a lot about. Of course, he's made some visits. Ole Miss was really high on him, and I still do think that they remain high on Eric Singleton. If you haven't watched his tapes, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and pull that up because, like I said, he did phenomenal things at Georgia Tech. We could sit up here. You've heard us talk about his stats, Mark and I. Just he's going to be a get wherever he goes, no doubt. We heard some early rumblings of who might be on, but it really, really looks that Eric Singleton and Auburn seemed to be the team to beat. Like I said, at first it was Ole Miss, and then some other teams came in. But right now, what we're hearing that Auburn really, really has a significant edge. So this is going to be one to watch out through the weekend. I'm not saying that we haven't confirmed that there will be a commit or they're close to commit, but just keep your ears and eyes open because it looks like Eric Singleton to Auburn is becoming more of a reality. But again, in the state of recruiting, there could be other teams, including Ole Miss, that might come in with to counter offer teams that he has relationship. But right now we're thinking Eric Singleton. It's only a matter of time before he's headed to the Plains in the Auburn Tigers. Another key top wide receiver we've already seen his red zone tag team guy and Barry and Brown commit, but still Dane Key, one of the top guys. Of course, we saw who was an instant impact player at the University of Kentucky, has been looking for a home. Again, another player that Ole Miss was really high on, made a visit down to Oxford. We've heard things went really well, but it looks like he might be going from a Kentucky Wildcat to a Georgia Bulldog. We're hearing a lot that Georgia has got the edge on this on Dane Key. I do believe it's something to note. Like you said, relationships do matter. Dane's girlfriend, I believe she also plays, if it's not softball, if I'm wrong on that, I know she plays a sport and she's playing at Georgia. So that might also not hurt the case for the Georgia Bulldogs to be able to get Dane Key. But what we're hearing now, highly coveted wide receivers, Eric Singleton, looking more and more like he's going to be an Auburn Tiger here soon. And Dane Key looks like he is going to go from being a Kentucky Wildcat to Georgia Bulldog. But again, nothing has been confirmed. But from what we're hearing from our sources close to the party, those seem like the two teams that are very, very much in the edge. But again, heading into the weekend, a lot can change, especially these guys. Eric Singleton, we knew that he was going to be a high value player, not just because of his skill set, but we're also when it comes into NIL. So I expect that some of the teams, like we mentioned, Ole Miss here, might make a late play as far as trying to turn the tables in their favor. But again, that's kind of what we're hearing as far as rumblings with the two top wide receivers that are in the transfer portal right now.
Interesting player right here that's noted on the screen on the 247 Sports feed. Patrick Payton, edge rusher, Florida State. He's going on visits right now, LSU in particular. Patrick Payton, a lot of Florida State fans were hoping that he was going to be in the line of Jermaine Johnson, Jared Verse, and going to be the next big edge rusher at Florida State. He definitely posted nice stats opposite those guys when they were getting all the double teams and all the attention, and he was benefiting from that. When they left, he didn't fulfill really the promise and have the kind of season that Florida State fans had hoped this past year. So again, Patrick Payton, despite having a disappointing 2024, still will be moving on and will gain a lot of interest as he already has. And again, you see right there, LSU is one of his suitors. Washington State defensive lineman David Gusta, he's out there and he's getting a lot of interest, Leanne.
He is. He's fresh in the portal. Like I said, a lot of teams, as much as we talk about wide receivers, we talk about corners, we talk about the guys that are the unspoken heroes are those offensive linemen. He's going to be a highly coveted defensive lineman, probably one of the top defensive guys here in the portal. Of course, Mark's pulled up his stats. He's very productive. Another big bodied physical guy. And you hear me say that a lot with these type of guys. But these are, remember, with the way the dynamics change, you've got to get those big body versatile guys there, especially in the trenches. You can't have that if you don't have that protection up front on either side of the ball. You can't get things done. You can't stand and handle business. Some of the schools, Mark, that we're hearing, that are already on the top, probably the top 3 schools that we've shown, his phone has been ringing off hook from what we're hearing. But the ones, of course, it should come as no surprise, Texas A&M. Texas A&M's definitely found a lot of success in this portal. They had no problem recruiting on the high school realm and transfer. So that's one of the early favorites. Also, we're of course hearing that Bama and TJ is going to like this one. Michigan are also in the running early on for his services. So I expect another, like I said, recently just got onto the board. I wasn't, if it wasn't last night or if it was early this morning, but again, he's going to be another defensive lineman, top defensive lineman to watch. Those are the early favorites. And I think over the weekend, we're only going to hear more. I haven't heard or confirmed on any visits yet with him. Again, if we have the weekend slate or we have the Monday show, we'll definitely get more. But he's one of the top defensive linemen, just hit the portal. Texas A&M, Bama, Michigan coming on strong early for his recruitment. So we have, again, once we have some more information on his visits, but he will be one to watch going into the weekend.
Matt, we appreciate the contribution there. Matt, with another note here, rumors are that Washington State may, is that opt out of the bowl against Syracuse? Is that what you're telling us? So, of course, Washington State lost its quarterback, John Mateer, who is in the transfer portal. So they've lost their starting quarterback. There we see David Gusta, one of their top defensive linemen in the portal. They lost their head coach, Jake Dickert, who has moved on to Wake Forest. So trying to think when that bowl game is played. I think it's a little bit after Christmas, and because of all that movement, they're already like a 15-point underdog against Kyle McCord and Syracuse. So that's how I'm reading that, is that there might be an issue there, just like there was with Marshall opting out of their bowl because they didn't have enough players. So we shall see. But Matt, thanks for that.
And Gusta, thank you for that. And Gusta made a kind of a comment that it had nothing to do with the program and the coaches and everything. You know, they've done him a really good job. He just did make the note, like, you know, that of course, you know, losing their head coach and kind of not knowing what the certainty of how the program was going to be was a big reason why he entered his name in the transfer portal. And again, I do believe I have to check on that, but with the head coach leaving, even though we have that window and the portal is set obviously to close on the 28th, we talked about, you know, in the next couple of days on the 23rd through the 1st, we're going to have a dead period. But again, those players were in those circumstances where coaches leave, they will have an additional 30 days to test the water. Obviously, for the Washington State players who've already portal, that doesn't hit them as far as entering the portal. But for those other Washington State players that I'm sure we'll be hearing more about as that change, obviously, in head coach and whatnot. But he did want to say that, you know, nothing against the program. They've given him a lot of time and development, but just fearing that like many athletes, you know, when there's movement in head coaches, that they build relationships, especially if the head coach, you don't know what lies ahead. So, you know, that was a statement that he did make as far as, you know, when people were, you know, wondering what was his major reason for leaving Washington State, because like you said, we see many players like him who have made an impact, you know, quickly and have been a integral part of, especially, you know, of the program.
We see, of course, as we've talked about in recent days with Leanne, the Branch brothers moving on. They're a tandem deal, as they were to USC originally, and they're visiting Georgia today. I know, Leanne, you had mentioned TJ. He's high on these two guys going to Michigan. They visited Michigan, and they're in the running. They're the maize and blue as well. We have just a couple minutes here, but the one guy that is impacting the college football playoff from a transfer portal standpoint above anybody else is, of course, Penn State backup quarterback Bo Pribula, because number one, he's the backup quarterback. So within one play, he can become the most important guy on the field. Number two is, of course, he's utilized by the Penn State offense, but of course he is moving on. UCF, Iowa have been in play for him, but he's got another big visit with another quarterback developer coming up here this weekend.
Yes, he does. And it should be no surprise. Ole Miss has already hosted we talked about the Virginia quarterback, and they've hosted another top transfer portal quarterback that they're set to this weekend. But this is another one that they are taking in, and rightfully so. Like you said, Mark, this is a guy who's been a substantial backup. He's not been a kid that sat on the bench. He definitely has a lot of experience. Like you said, there was a lot of question. You brought up very good points a couple shows ago when we were on air. You know, why are we seeing players like him who have clearly made an impact at their season, but also again it gives him a good footing for places like Ole Miss. It's no question. Ole Miss allegiance and ties aside, we know that Lane Kiffin and his staff know how to develop quarterbacks. He's a quarterback savant. And I'm sure that there's plenty of people that could agree outside the beat on this, and it should be no question. Ole Miss really hasn't right now. Of course, they have Austin Simmons. We saw a little bit of what he could do during Georgia, and that fearful moment when we thought we lost Jackson Dart, how productive he could be. They also do have, AJ Maddox, of course, the Maddox brothers. Highly touted. AJ was a kid that we've had already on campus for some time. Those have really been their two guys, but we know that especially in the SEC, especially in a place like Ole Miss, that they were going to be in the market for him. So he's set to visit this one, and then after that, he will be heading to Bloomington, is what we're hearing, to be checking out Indiana. Indiana is very much a name in the mix for him. So why not better way to set the stage for your possibly future quarterback than playing in a playoff game? So it's going to be an interesting weekend to see. As much as we know that Ole Miss can, obviously what they can do for a kid and development wise, NIL wise, for a kid like this, it's going to be interesting to see, how much IU really is in the mix. But again, you mentioned also Missouri, Iowa are two other schools that we're kind of hearing that have shown interest, but there's not a lot of strong interest at this moment. But right now, the big headlining visits for him will be at Ole Miss and Oxford, and then of course he will be watching IU do crazy things. Hopefully, again in Notre Dame against in their playoff run tonight. So that will be definitely a recruitment to watch. But no doubt that Lane Kiffin is still looking for that quarterback that usually comes out of the portal. So this is a great spot for him to be in, and it couldn't come for a better time for the Rebels. But like I said, hold your horses, because IU's got a case to plead, and they have a pretty good setting to do it for his services this weekend, being in a playoff game.
Two spans on the screen, speedster and return specialist, originally Illinois, then Florida State. He's in the portal and reportedly going to Pitt. All right, we are out of time. Leanne, appreciate you being here as always, dropping the knowledge on us. And we will be back at some point here very soon, maybe this weekend. We will, of course, let you know. So hit the bell for the notifications. Once you subscribe, please hit the like button on the way out. All right, Leanne.
Thank you, guys.
We will continue to track it.
Yep, we will see you, and good luck to all the kiddos here that will go be checking out for Texas high school football playoffs. We're going to take in South Oak Cliff tonight and North Crowley tomorrow, headed to Jerry World. And of course, watch those Texas Tech Raiders, because there's definitely something in the water, and I'm sure we're going to have some rumblings with it, whether we see you this weekend or we see you on the Monday show. But we will be on the move with you, Mark and I. So tune in, subscribe, and we will see you very soon, guys.